In 1982, a man was found hanging from Blackfriars Bridge in London. His name was Roberto Calvi, and he was known across Europe as God's banker. His pockets were stuffed with cash and bricks. His wrists were bound. The official verdict was suicide, but Roberto Calvi didn't hang himself. He was the chairman of Banco Ambrosiano at the time, Italy's largest private bank, and he had just discovered something so dangerous that powerful men decided he could no longer be allowed to speak. What he knew connected the Vatican, the Italian mafia, a secretive Masonic lodge, and one of the largest financial frauds in modern history. Here is the question that investigators, journalists, and prosecutors have spent decades trying to answer. How did the most powerful religious institution on earth become a key player in one of the dirtiest money laundering operations the world has ever seen, and why has almost no one ever faced justice for it? The Vatican Bank, officially known as the Institute for the Works of Religion, or IOR, was established in 1942, on paper. It exists to manage assets belonging to Catholic institutions around the world. It is technically not a bank in the conventional sense. It has no central banking license, answers to no national regulator, and sits on sovereign territory the size of a city block inside Rome. That combination of financial power and near-total legal immunity made it uniquely, dangerously attractive. What unfolded over the following decades was not simply a story of corruption. It was a story of how religion, organized crime, Cold War paranoia, and institutional secrecy can fuse together into something that defies belief. Billions of dollars moved through Vatican accounts. Men died. Documents disappeared. And an archbishop at the center of it all walked free while the institutions he helped build crumbled around him. This is the full story. And it goes far deeper than most people realize. The archbishop who opened the door. Before there was a scandal, there was a man named Paul Marcinkus. Born in Cicero, Illinois, the same town that once sheltered Al Capone, Marcinkus rose through the ranks of the Catholic Church with an uncommon mix of charm, ambition, and street-level toughness. By the late 1960s, Pope Paul VI trusted him enough to make him the head of the Vatican Bank. Marcinkus was not a trained financier. He was a priest who stood 6'3" and knew how to move in powerful rooms. He also knew Michele Sindona. Sindona was a Sicilian financier with deep ties to the American Mafia, the CIA, and the Christian Democratic Party in Italy. He had built a financial empire by moving money in ways that governments couldn't easily trace. He was brilliant, ruthless, and utterly connected. When he and Marcinkus began doing business together in the early 1970s, few people outside their inner circle even noticed. They should have. Sindona used the Vatican Bank's sovereign immunity as a financial curtain. Money moved in without scrutiny. It moved out without questions. The arrangement gave organized crime something it had always dreamed of: a legitimate, untouchable address for dirty money. And it gave the Vatican access to investment returns it had no interest in examining too closely. When Sindona's U.S. bank collapsed in 1974, at the time, the largest bank failure in American history, investigators found threads leading directly to Vatican accounts. Marcinkus denied everything. The Vatican claimed diplomatic immunity. The threads were cut, but the operation didn't stop. It simply found a new partner, the banker and the Brotherhood. Enter Roberto Calvi. Calvi ran Banco Ambrosiano, and through a web of shell companies, ghost accounts, and offshore subsidiaries, he and Marcinkus constructed something extraordinary. The Vatican Bank became a shareholder in companies that didn't exist. Loans were issued to entities that had no employees, no offices, and no purpose except to move money. The cash flowed from Italy through Luxembourg, through Panama, through the Bahamas, and back again cleaner each time it resurfaced. But Calvi had another partner, one even more dangerous than the Vatican. He was deeply embedded with Propaganda Due, known simply as P2, a clandestine Masonic lodge that had infiltrated the highest levels of the Italian military, intelligence services, media, and P2 was eventually discovered to have nearly 1,000 members, including cabinet ministers, generals, and intelligence chiefs. Its Grand Master was a man named Licio Gelli, who answered to no one and appeared untouchable. P2 used the money flowing through Calvi's network to fund political operations across Latin America, including payments to military juntas in Argentina. Some investigators believe funds also reached far-right terrorist networks inside Italy during the years of Lead, one of the darkest chapters in post-war Italian history. When Italian authorities finally raided P2's headquarters in 1981, they found membership lists. They found Calvi's name. And suddenly, the walls began to close in. The man who knew too much. Calvi saw what was. He began sending desperate letters to Pope John Paul II, warning that a collapse was imminent and that the Vatican would be exposed. He claimed that he could bring down the institution if he talked. Whether that was a plea or a threat, no one is entirely sure. In June 1982, Calvi fled Italy on a false passport. He moved through Austria and Britain, staying in safe houses, making frantic phone calls, trying to reach anyone who could protect him. On June 17th, his secretary in Milan fell from the windows of Banco Ambrosiano's offices. Her death was also ruled a suicide. On June 18th, Roberto Calvi was found hanging from Blackfriars Bridge. When British police initially ruled his death a suicide, Italian prosecutors refused to accept. Forensic re-examinations over the following decades revealed that Calvi could not have tied the knots around his own wrists. The bricks in his pockets were not from any local site. He had been moved to that bridge after death. In 2005, 5 people were charged with his murder, including a senior figure connected to the Sicilian Mafia. All 5 were acquitted in 2007 due to insufficient. Roberto Calvi's killer has never been identified. Letters, lies, and $1 billion missing. After Calvi's death, Banco Ambrosiano collapsed, leaving a hole of approximately $1.3 billion. The Vatican Bank had been the principal shareholder in the ghost companies at the center of the fraud. Under intense international pressure, the Holy See eventually agreed to pay $244 million to Ambrosiano's creditors. They called it a goodwill payment, and explicitly stated it was not an admission of wrongdoing. Archbishop Marcinkus was indicted by Italian magistrates in 1987 on charges of being an accessory to fraudulent bankruptcy. The Vatican refused to hand him over. For years, Marcinkus literally could not leave Vatican territory without risking arrest on Italian soil. He remained protected inside those walls until 1993, when an Italian court finally dropped the charges on a legal technicality. He retired to Sun City, Arizona, and died in 2006 without ever standing trial. In his later years, when asked about the scandal, Marcinkus reportedly said, "You can't run the church on Hail Marys. Here is what makes this story so enduring and so No senior figure at the Vatican was ever convicted of a crime connected to the Ambrosiano affair. The men most directly responsible either died in mysterious circumstances, were shielded by diplomatic immunity, or outlived the statute of limitations. Licio Gelli, the P2 Grandmaster, spent years evading extradition and ultimately died in 2015 at the age of 96, never serving a full sentence for his most serious crimes. But in 2013, something shifted. Pope Francis took over a Vatican in financial chaos. A series of internal investigations revealed that the IOR was still being used to hide assets, not by organized crime this time, but by clergy, Italian nationals evading taxes, and politically connected insiders. In one case, a Vatican official was arrested inside Vatican City for attempting to smuggle 20 million euros in cash aboard a private aircraft. Francis eventually pushed through sweeping reforms, reducing the IOR's account holders from more than 18,000 to under 5,000, and submitting the bank to external oversight for the first time in its history. But here is the question that no reform has answered.